From the offices of MrTopStep.com, this is Danny Riley with today's closing print. You know what? The markets may be over, but the search for how and why in the markets is really never over. As traders, you may turn off your computers, but at some point, either tonight, this afternoon, tomorrow, you'll get back on and you'll be searching for why the markets do what they do. You know, this was not a planned. There's nothing here that I sat down and planned out. Took a couple notes here, but at the end of the day, this is what we do for a living. And the other part of this is trying to learn why the markets and how they function as they do. I believe I've got a good handle on why the S&P did what it did today. After making a high up at 1812 and a half, the S&P ground higher all morning long, and then basically hung around the 1811 level. And exactly at 11 o'clock Central Time, when the MIM went on, it came out 800 million to sell right away. Now, the futures didn't react to that right away. But what was going on that a lot of people didn't know about was that there was an asset allocation going on. And this is where the mutual funds, because stocks are up X% at the end of the month, what they do is they come in, they had $3 billion in stock for sale, and they sold stock and they bought bonds. That's to rebalance their portfolio, stock to bonds. But anyways, it wasn't just that. Is when the MIM turned on and that stuff was coming out, we put out an instant message that said that one of the firms earlier on had heard that there was over 900 million for sale. That was even long before 11 o'clock. And yet the S&P was still holding up fairly well going into the close. But at 11:03, when we started pounding out the stuff about the MIM, the S&P started to go down, and it continued to go down, and it went right down. It went from, let me see, I've got my notes. Let's see. At 11:03, the S&P was trading 11.18 even. At 11:52, the S&P had made a new low at 18.03 even, or 18.0275, 18.03 in the big contract. You know, at the end of the day, the total volume on the floor, both in the floor around, all over the place, was extremely low. But when you took the combined total trade volume over the holiday, that's including yesterday's, shortened day, and you bring it into today's Globex and you bring it into today's close, only 700,000 minis traded. Really, that tells you what was going on here today. Traders didn't show up for work. The algorithms had their way in the beginning of the day. When everything was for sale late in the day, the algorithms had their way on the downside. We'll leave it at that. We'll see you on the opening print on Monday.